Hello and welcome. Um, it is December 2025, which means it is Eternal Month in Revolution Custom Standard. Um, things have been pretty quiet in League so far. I imagine it's because a lot of our big players are currently reviewing an ungodly number of sets, preparing or selecting them for the next rotation. But that means if you're looking for a set to submit for the GP, which the deadline's coming up pretty soon, it might be tough to pick something out. So today I'm going through 10 deck lists, actually 10 deck lists this time. Some that I built, some that other people have built, some with a little bit of testing behind them, some with no testing at all, just to give you a sense of what kind of things are available and what kind of things I think might be strong in this Eternal meta. It's quite a complicated field. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of very powerful things. My general thoughts on Eternal. Um, from what I've played so far is that this is like most Eternal formats. It's fast. You the really fast linear decks kill you in turn four-ish, sometimes turn three. Um, so you absolutely have to either present a clock that's that fast, or you need to be interacting by that point. So you need to be presenting interaction on turns one, two, even three might be a little late. Also, uh, there are combo from hand decks in this field. There are like Stormish decks. I haven't built one for you now, but there's Stormish decks. There's Graveyard combo decks uh, that don't that aren't winning on turn four by creatures, but by combo from hand. So um, you probably need to have some plan against these decks. You can't just have removal as your only interaction. But much like a lot of these formats, even though they can be fast if you're not prepared or if you don't have a lot of interaction, if you obey the rules of engagement, if you do something in the early turns, the games can be longer. And in that case, the fact that everyone is packing like small answers, small removal, means that big threats can absolutely be relevant and take over the game. This is not as powerful as, certainly not as powerful as Modern, but I think probably not even as powerful as Pioneer. Um, for reference, this is only 19 sets or 20 sets right now. Standard Revolution Standard is only seven, so it's like three times as many. Um, so yeah, let's start out by looking at. Let's start with some aggro deck. I'm gonna go like kind of from fast decks to slow decks and then combo. Um, so this is as the title says, PTM built this one and graciously allowed me to show it here. This is Heroic Aggro. So this is red green, only 18 lands, and the big showstopper here is Ephemia of the Horse, um, terror of her standard tenure, and now just as good in Eternal. Also, with a whole bunch of just one drops. Arid Outrider, it's +1/+0 if you control a token. Emblazed Hooligan, PTM's favorite card, makes creatures unable to block. Rasamar Forerunner, gives the whole board +1/+0 if you target it. And then we have a bunch of ways to target those. We have Face of Animosity and Momentous Charge as the best ones. Reply to the Call gives things haste. Thrice Blessed Boon can be free off of Ephemia. Um, Upgrade Stunt is massive. If you've cast another spell that targets a creature, this is 1 mana +4/+4 and must be blocked and trample on a sorcery. And then Ferocious Flame. A bunch of these pump spells get our creatures up to 4 power, so we can use Ferocious Flame pretty effectively. And the little tech card of Magmatic Interruption, which can either make a 1/1 with haste, so we have something to target, or deal with artifacts like little hate pieces, or can make creatures can't block this turn, so either get a blocker out of the way, or in a pinch, target our own Ephemia if the target creature can't block this turn. It's a sorcery, though. Mana base, you're going to see a lot of. It's kind of a good time to talk about the different. There's a lot of lands available, but I think the ones you're most likely to see are the dormant lands, which are very fast, uh, and can even get you some value in the late game, but are quite painful. The paths from Kitso Dusk of Time, once again, for a very fast deck, they're useful, or if you care about the cycling. Basics are important. Secluded farmland, the fast lands from Secrets of the River City. If you're a two-color deck like this one is, you can have additional fast lands by playing Temple of Origins and the Shocklands here, Urban Jungle. We have all 10 of those available. Uh, If you're three colors, you might also consider New Divide and Primal Fissure. And there are some value tap lands that are worth considering if you think you can get away with them. Mostly, I think the creature lands from Theros Age of Trax are the main. If you have a lot of permanents, those can be useful. So yeah, this is I think like I don't know if heroic aggro is exact. This is I don't know if it's the perfect build. PTM certainly would know better than me. Uh, but I would describe this as kind of the pace setter for the format. This kills you like turn 4, sometimes turn 3. It is quite vulnerable to interaction. Nothing here protects you from interaction. So if your opponent, and there's only 16 creatures. So if you show up with a good chunk of like Twilight Ambushes and Ferocious Flames of your own, you can absolutely get ahead of this. A bunch of 1/1s can block it, but if you're not interacting, this kills you right fast. Conscript in the sideboard, more ways to deal with blockers. Crimson Finale deals with wide boards and graveyards and aristocrats decks. Crucible Burning Sun for graveyard decks and combos. Scorching Condemnation stops life gain, and Vigilante Firebug also stops life gain, and also various Stormy and Flashbacky and Cast from Exile things. Uh, I should note, the sideboards I'm showing, a lot of them are a little rough. When PTM built this, this was back when Amethyst Hoarder combo was still at full power, and so there you can see there's a lot of answers to Amethyst Hoarder, Crucible, and Condemnation, or sorry, Crucible and Condemnation and Firebug all on the sideboard, and Crimson Finale, bunch of things that can beat um, Aristocrats combo. Probably I would expect a little less of that in the sideboard after this. So yeah, this kind of sets the tone for the format. You have to be able to keep up with this. Let's talk about another aggro deck. It's a little slower, but has had a history in Eternal. Naya Beats. Okay, this deck list, as always for me, is kind of a mess. Wilderkin Behemoth. Let's start up here at the fours. Wilderkin Behemoth is an excellent card. I said that a lot of people are going to be kind of focusing on small removal, small answers. Even board wipes, sweepers are going to be too slow for some of the control decks. They're not going to have them in the main deck. So a lot of decks are not going to have main deck answers, or very few answers maybe, to a Wilderkin Behemoth. Um, the other 4-drop that we got this year, Penraf Dispatcher. I think this clears Merciless Shieldbreaker as the other new great 4-drop of Naya, which has some excellent things to search up. So uh, let's start. Okay, let's start going back to our 1-drops. We got 4 Huskforger Acolyte. Of course, ramping into these 4-drops is very important for this deck. We also have 4 Symbol of the Revolution, which, one of the downsides of Dispatcher in current standard is that you don't have a great option in terms of a 1-drop to grab that is super threatening in the late game. I guess you can get Aspiring Anarchist, but Symbol's a lot more threatening in the late game, even if your Dispatcher subsequently dies. On the 2-drop slot, Crystal Lion is a solid threat that can also ramp into your 4-drops and kind of fix your mana because of some tough mana requirements here. Cybreeze Clan Arbiter. It's a hateful card that can deal with a lot of combo things and slow your opponent down, deal with their removal. Elvish Witness is another ramp spell to get you to your 4-drops. I think that's about as much ramp as you want. I've also got some 1-drop, some 1-ofs in Fog Spewer and Winterholm Herseer, which I think are good against most decks when you're playing this, but they give you options of things to get with Penraf Dispatcher. You could also have those in the sideboard. At the 3-drop spot, Codename Viridian is a very good hate piece. I don't have any other equipment for Viridian. You could certainly play some other equipment, but I don't think it's quite worth it here. Viridian's going to annoy a lot of control and combo decks. Elemental of Surprise, very good with Wilderkin Behemoth, gives your whole stuff, give all your stuff haste, and plus 1/+0 the turn it comes down. And First Strike. And I've slotted in some Fabricated Anomalies here. Just give a way to use your graveyard, filter through your deck, pump up your creatures. Yeah, I imagine you probably end up settling on which of these cards you want the full 4 of, but here's kind of the things I'm thinking about. And the only non-creature here is Ferocious Flame. This deck is slightly slower than the Heroic deck, but it is significantly more resilient to removal, and it has a little bit more interaction for non-creatures with like the Arbiters and the Viridians and the Herseers and the Fog Spewers. Mana base is pretty normal, and I have a bunch of 1-ofs in the sideboard, things you might consider wanting to get. You could put a Vigilante Firebug in here, even though the mod is not perfect, as a thing to search up with Dispatcher. Purifier of Dawnloon Grove is a great thing. You could even have one of those in the main deck, blow up various artifacts and enchantments. Genotype Splicer, in the rare case you end up in kind of a mirror board style thing, this thing can give your things flying, get them over the top. Alden Inquirer is another kind of Salia-ish option that you could be on. Aspiring Anarchist, if your opponent doesn't have much removal, I think this is a worthy include as kind of way to go bigger. And Melon, especially. If your opponent's bringing in creature-based removal, which I imagine they are, Melon becomes a premium one-drop if it's got something to answer. We also have Crucible. I think if you bring in the Crucibles, you bring out the anomalies. I think I have Crucible in the sideboard of a lot of these decks that don't have significant graveyard scenes of their own. Uh, Even with the Hoarder combo hit, there are a lot of good graveyard decks, graveyard synergy decks, graveyard combo decks, graveyard control decks that you want Crucible for. And a lot of those decks don't really care about archival storage. Um, and you could, I think the option is usually Soul Guide Lantern if you want a cheaper one. I have Event Horizon here in the sideboard. General catch-all answer. Event Horizon is, of course, an amazing card. You're never making a mistake putting Event Horizon in your white decks in this format. It is the premium white removal. Although Sanctum of Repression is like worth talking about. I think it's worse than Event Horizon in almost all situations, but at least in the same conversation, which is impressive. For the last sideboard thought I put an Advance of Fire and Faith. This thing is also, I think, good enough to consider in Eternal. It's a very good anti-aggro card. Once again, it's not symmetrical. Okay. There's plenty of other aggro decks you could be running. I think there's like a blue-red prowess thing definitely that's out there. Mono-green aggro is certainly, at least, mono-green aggro more than any other deck in Revolution really feels that Huskforger produces colorless, meaning that you cannot play, not how you spell that, you can't play Skull and Nyxweaver on turn 2 off of Huskforger Acolyte. Uh, Unfortunate for mono green, but you can still play like I'm just gonna go for like some of the key cards. Brutality is a good card, and then you get all the usual play lots of forests payoffs. That's a reasonable aggro deck. I think Naya is a little better, but someone I'm not going to say who, but one of the designers put a lot of available excursion promos for mono green. I wonder who that could have been. Let's move a little bit out of aggro and into kind of more of a tempo space. Here's Blue-Red Tunneler. The reason I'm calling this deck Blue-Red Tunneler is because it's got half Silver Tracker. This is a card that is a little silly. It's Bias. Bias was pretty good. 3 mana, 3/3, gave your whole board Ophidian. So whenever a creature control hit an opponent drew a card. Oh, what if that cost 2 mana? Half Silver Tracker, the 2 mana 2/2. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Don't worry, maximum twice a turn. I think you'll be fine. Twice a turn is plenty. It also has Tunneler, which I'm not going to explain, but it's a kind of evasion ability. It kind of gives both players evasion, which is something this deck is interested in. This deck has a bunch of one drops that can have evasion and can get in. So Ignited Soul has Menace, Sleep Restricts has Flash and Flying and can tap down blockers. Spellbane Sentinel has Flying and can tax out non-creature spells. Um, then up at 2, it has, in addition to the House Silver Trackers, Agent of Deception, with all these one drops, can often come down and counter their creatures or planeswalkers. Smuggling Kingpin can benefit from all your evasive attackers. This deck could also easily play some of the ninjas from Kitso Dusk of Time, like that 1 mana ninja, or even the Branch Stalker. Smuggling Kingpin accumulates counters and lets you cast your cheap spells for free. It's also once each turn, so your instants and sleep restricts can benefit from the discount on your opponent's turn. Inconspicuous Sloop is another thing that benefits from having lots of little one power creatures and can draw you cards if it gets through. And the curve tops out at Tobias Maxwell, which is 3 mana 3/3, gets you a creature from the top 3 cards of your deck, and can draw a card each turn as long as you're getting in with creatures. This can draw a ton of cards, and then while you're drawing cards, you're going to be keeping them off balance with Spellbane Sentinels, Agent of Deceptions, and the best counterspell in this deck, Pass Judgment. You're going to have lots of tapped creatures. You can even tap your creatures whenever you want. Inconspicuous Loop. So Tap Judgment can be like a 1 mana counter unless they play 2 or 3. That'll hopefully keep you alive. Silence of the Drowned is the other main deck counter spell here. Just a quench that can also tap down permanents to get blockers out of the way. And Violent Discharge is the burn spell of choice. Between hitting your opponent with evasive creatures and casting various instants, you're going to be committing, not committing, disturbing the peace very consistently. Sideboard, I have a bunch of normal things, but also Lightspeed Launcher, which I think is a good backup plan. If your opponent's bringing a ton of removal, you can just bring in Lightspeed Launcher, and then you play two creatures, you draw cards. Negate to deal with stuff that doesn't care about your ground creature plan. Vigilante Firebug for graveyards. Uh, yeah, this deck is lean and mean. It's got the usual kind of tempo things where you really do need to have a good opening hand. If you don't play a one drop on turn one, you're really far behind. It's much better on the play than the draw. But when it gets against decks, especially that are slow or maybe not doing a ton turn one and two, control decks, kind of slower mid range decks, this can land its early threats, Half Silver or Spellbane or Tobias or Inconspicuous Sloop, and then just like use Past Judgment and Silence of the Drowned to prevent the opponent from ever developing a relevant threat. Seems quite strong. And this is not exactly a deck I've run into in League, but it's similar to one. I forget exactly who was running this. My apologies. Let's get into mid range with. Let's start here. This is Jund mid. So this is a Dawnglade Wildbear deck. And one of the developments from this year is that we now have redundancy for Dawnglade Wildbear. You can also play Scattering Swine. Mono's a little tricky, but Wild Bear and Swine are the core of the deck, and what we're picking up with that is Omen of Slaughter, Phoenix's Touch, and I put in Spirited Protest because I wanted like a 9th and 10th thing to pick up with Omen of Slaughter, Phoenix's Touch. This is a Husk Forger Acolyte deck, and just playing the best, apart from that, just good Jund cards. Exorcist of Errors on 2, Fabricated Anomaly on 3, Speaker of Ash also on 3. Got Ferocious Flame and A Journey Begins. Ferocious Flame is good with Speaker of Ash. Anomaly can get things up to it. Wild Bear has 4 power. A Journey Begins finds every card in the deck except for Ferocious Flame and other copies of A Journey Begins. And we're just going to Jund them out. Speaker of Ash is a very good card. It can also sacrifice these enchantments if you don't have a way to pick them back up. Uh, yeah, and the goal is just be doing things on curve, affecting the board, kind of a boomer Jund sort of strategy. But Exorcist and Speaker of Ash can hopefully keep you alive. Phoenix's Touch too. 23 lands. Oh, yeah. The priority here is a lot of duels because the mono's a little tricky here. You want to go turn 1 Huskforger, turn 2 Scattering Swine or Speaker of Ash. So you need, for that to happen, you need to play a green dual land on turn 1, like a green black land turn 1, red land turn 2, then you can turn 2 Speaker of Ash. So for that reason, I have a lot of duels and very few fetches in this mono base. Yep, Jund mid. Look, I did say that the meta is going to have some combo decks, aggro decks that kill you in turn 4, but one thing I've also observed looking at past Eternal GP is a lot of people bring decks that aren't that. A lot of people are going to bring more mid-rangey decks, more piles, stuff with unusual angles of attack. Um, so something solid like this could absolutely perform well. Sideboard has Hugo's Handiwork, Menelaya, that's a good thing to pick up. Duress. There's a conversation of Duress versus Absentia. My position is if you're a combo deck, you usually want Absentia, because Absentia takes the because you don't care about usually the more expensive cards, and Absentia takes the hate pieces, including the hate pieces that are creatures like Winterholm Hearthier or Fogspewer, if you care about those cards. Whereas if you're a mid-range deck trying to fight combo, usually you want Duress. Duress takes more relevant combo cards. Well, Absentia is still relevant. Skarn the Bloodless is my pick for anti-aggro card here, although you could just play like Twilight Ambush or something. This is Jund. Never a bad time to play Jund. Oh, you could play a Work Safety Violation too. That'd be completely reasonable. Yeah, Wild Bear remains good. Wild Bear Ferocious Flame remains a good core of the deck. Another mid-range option I'm thinking about? What about Mono Black? Mono Black has been historically the best color in Revolution history. So what if we played Diabolical Minion in a kind of mid-range deck? So, Diabolical Minion, turn 2, you could play Exorcist of Errors or Lore Blackmailer. Maybe Lore Blackmailer should be Smirk, yeah, these should probably, okay, I also have that, Smirk, Dark Hand Favored, so I forgot I had all these in the deck. Our Blacker's not perfect, but it's a pretty decent card, and it helps kind of pressure their hand along with a lot of the other things you're doing, like Path of Phoenix and everything you can do on turn one. Up on four, you got Thrizak the Heinous. If you don't got life to spare, this could be an enormous flyer, or kill their creature, or draw you cards, or all three. Glauna as our removal spell of choice. Sovereign's Execution as removal. Main deck Duress to deal with things that the removal can't hit. Damn to Hell, because we're on 22 swamps, so this is going to be a nice little sweeper at the top of our curve. Chromatic Shard gets to Thrizak and Damn to Hell a little faster, also triggers Indulge on Glauna, which otherwise we're a little short on ways. Oh, sorry, that's not Phoenix's Touch. You could also run Phoenix's Touch in this deck. This is the Path of Phoenix. Um, you can get to, yeah, you're gonna get Indulge off Glauna by drawing cards off Chromatic Shard, or by gaining 3 life from 2 different sources of life gain, like Minion plus second chapter of Path of Phoenix, or one Damn to Hell, or what else could get it? One Sifting Through Soot trigger plus a Diabolical Minion trigger. Not the perfect Glauna deck, but it's a very good card even if you only activate the -2 once. In the mono base, Dark Hand Enterprises is pretty free to include in a deck like this, and that last activate ability is no joke. Heap Ludicon is a new pickup that I think is at least worth trying. Cyborg brings you more sweepers in Adderdoll Massacre. Grey Merchant of Asphodel if you think your permanents are going to stick around. Memory Hostage for combo. Sifting Through Soot is my anti-aggro of choice. Once again, you could just play Twilight Ambush, and that might just be better. Yeah, Mono Black is basically Mono Black got two good tools in this. Well, we got Damn to Hell and Heap Ludicon as kind of like explicitly Mono Black tool, and I also got Exorcist of Errors, which allows it to have more interaction while it's doing its thing. You could also play Inner Rings Pupil in this deck instead of Thrizak. That's completely legit. Um, yeah, Revolution never been short of good mono black cards. Uh, okay, let's talk about something in the ramp space. This is red green ramp. So I've been pretty poo-pooing red green ramp in the Revolution chat because I don't think it interacts with the combo decks very effectively. You know, you either want exile-based removal like Event Horizon, you want counter spells, you want Exorcist of Errors and other Thoughtseize effects, and Red Green Ramp doesn't really do that. Instead, I thought, well, what about Venture Capitalist? Now, I have the Venture Capitalist in the main. You could also put the Venture Capitalist in the sideboard along with all the sideboard cards that they fetch. But this is kind of like red green ramp mid range, and then the idea is, well, you can use Venture Capitalist to get Crucible of the Burning Sun, or Crown Guard Ban, or Golden Bloom of the Silenced, or whatever other hate artifact you need. You could also put freaking Crown Guard, yeah, Crown, or you could put um various other hate artifacts in here if you wanted them. And meanwhile, you can just put, 4 Husk Forges are excellent. This could also be a Dawnglade Cultivator plus Shifting Layer deck. If you want to get really into the ramp, this is more of like a ramp mid-range deck rather than something that's going all the way up to the 8s and 9s, because, the 3s and 4s are just fine. Uh, we have, okay, this deck list in a weird order. Huskforger ramps into 3s, including Fabricated Anomaly, Estrothian Gentrifiers, and Ultharl. Between Estrothian Gentrifiers, Gate of Realms, and Stella's Journal, Gate of Realms and Stella's Journal are targets for Venture Capitalists. There's a lot of reasons to have a very diverse mono base, which is why there's kind of a weird mono base here. It's good. It's all good lands, but it's a bunch of different lands. You get maximum Stella's Journal discount and Gate of Realms discount. Um, Crumbling Tower benefits from all the land shenanigans that Ulfarl and Estrothian Gentrifiers do. Aurora also benefits from those land shenanigans. I put in Yen Slopeskidder here as just like decent 4-drop you can ramp into and works kind of the land seam. Abominable Avalanche is great, and you got 5 drops, so you're actually triggering it. At the Walls, a Sweeper is not exactly what you're looking for, but a good thing to dump a ton of mana into. Adds this Terminal Impact. That card is, I think, just as good in Eternal. Also got Braze as the instant speed removal spell of choice. You don't really care about giving them the food. Cyborg got Advance of Fire and Faith and additional Brazes. Emgar and Duelist if you don't think they're going to be blocking, or if the first strike blocker is nice. Ferocious Flame's never a bad thing to have around. Fog Spewer. There's not a good hate artifact for non-creature spells, unfortunately, so Fog Spewer is good enough. Sundar's Avalanche for artifacts. Yeah, this is still, I think, a little soft to combo, but Venture Capitalist for hate pieces certainly gives you at least something to do. And otherwise, this can, much like the standard counterpart, kill pretty quickly. You could also play more ramp. I'm pretty light on ramp in this ramp deck. It's just Huskforger and kind of Ulfarl and Root Fossil. But you could easily put in like the various 2 mana ramp spells, more Root Fossil, stuff like that. Shigana Banner Burns would be a great pickup for this deck too. Lots of options. Yeah, I'm not the most confident in this, but I think like if this is your style of deck, this is completely legitimate and worth trying out. Okay, now we're getting to the slow decks. Let's talk about control with a control deck that I see a lot of people talking about. This is White Black Bell Hacker. So the idea is this is a control deck with a combo finish. The combo is Keening Bell Tower and Life Hacker. If you have both of these in play and you either draw a card or gain a life, they'll gaining life causes you to draw a card with Life Hacker, which drains your opponent from one with Bell Tower, which goes back and forth. And as long as their life total is less than the number of cards in your deck, they die before you deck out. And the advantage of this combo over the cheaper combos that are available in this format is that Lifehacker and Keening Bell Tower are both pretty good cards. Bell Tower especially is a great card, and you can get both of these off Contest Coordinator. So on turn 1, you could play a Dark Covenant, which draws cards, triggers Bell Tower. On turn 2, got a main deck Crucible, because why not? Event Horizon and Sanctum Repression are removal of spells of choice. Sanctum Repression can pick up Contest Coordinator to do this again. We've got Shatter Identity, Reform Purpose to attack our opponent's hand, along with Chromatic Shards and Ley Shards to ramp into our important 4-drops. Also, these trigger Keening Bell Tower. This is also a Feast of Whispered Knives deck, which triggers all the same things that trigger Bell Tower. And it's just, as always, a nasty card. I should probably have the other two in the sideboard. 24 lands. Because of Contest Coordinator, we are playing Gloomcover Step, which is a plain swamp, as well as Emgara, the Brilliant City. Backside of Emgara is a little more graveyard hate, which is nice to have. Also, a Gates to the Underworld for all our permanents. This card's pretty good. Other than that, mono base is normal. Oh, and Bring the House Down, I forgot to mention, is a sweeper that you can get with Contest Coordinator. And this deck doesn't mind playing a sweeper. Could also be on more of those. Yeah, this is a solid control deck that can just get ahead with normal value things with Feast and Bell Tower and Life Hacker on their own. And it can also have a combo finish if it needs to end the game quickly to shut the door. Sideboard's got some Exorcists, some Crucibles, Twilight Ambush. Sinido, I think, is a reasonable include if you're just looking for kind of a mid-range Planeswalker to bring in. More 4-drops are nice with all your 2-mana shards and ley shards. And they're I haven't been drawing attention to it, but every single deck I've showed here, there are some promos available. I think it's Contest Coordinator, Chromatic Shard, Bell Tower, Dark Covenant, and I think that Twilight Ambush also for this deck. So yeah, lots of promos to chase. Please get the promos. I may have designed some of these promos, and I want people to see my cool promos. That's the main reason I'm making this video, is so people will unlock and see my cool promos. I'm not saying all of these are my promos, but they are promos of someone. Another like little fun control deck I'm thinking about. In Search of Peace is a really messed up card. It blinks a slow blink, but it blinks one of your permanents, any permanent, even lands, whenever you cast a spell. Not once per turn, not just on your turn, whenever you cast a spell. So you know what's great with In Search of Peace? Well, on one, you could blink Kaleidoscapes and Phoenix's Touch. Kaleidoscape means, with In Search of Peace, means every time you play a spell, you can draw a card. Phoenix Touch, same thing, but your opponent discards a card. That'll get them done right quick. We also have Redeploy, the other blink spell of choice that can blink any permanent, so that's great. You can just blink Kaleidoscape or Phoenix to touch a little bit of value, or you can blink the 2-drop Omen of Deception with Redeploy to basically recast Omen of Deception and draw a card. That's great. Event Horizon's another instant that can trigger your In Search of Peace whenever you need. Hang is the other instant of choice as the removal spell. In Search of Peace is a 3-mana permanent, as is Borrow. I think this is a great shell for Borrow. It's a great thing to blink with In Search of Peace. Great thing to blink with Redeploy. Kind of like does a whole bunch of things, clogs up the board. I was really impressed with it, even when I was blinking it with the much worse Soul Space refit. And now we have Redeploy and Search of Peace, which are much better blink spells. There's Discern. I just want another 1-mana instant to keep triggering my stuff and kind of find. And this deck does want a little bit of velocity to put together its synergies more reliably. Kaleidoscape kind of does that too. This is a control deck, so it's playing a sweeper in Dreamfall. Uh, benefit of being white-blue, you get access to this form on a sweeper, although there's also Wipe the World Clean and Chromatic Rift, which I think is the best one. And No Time to Waste, a little unusual include, In Search of Beast says, under your control, not under its owner's control. So if you No Time to Waste one of their permanents, um, and then cast any spell and blink the permanent you solve in Search of Beast, you get to keep it forever. Um, only three of them because it's only good if in Search of Peace. Although you could always just use this to, if your opponent has an important permanent, you could just take it and just for long enough for it not to be a problem. This like disables a permanent for kind of 2 turns. Lands because this is so many enchantments that remain on board. Good deck for 100-handed pillars and for ephemeral mire or even case to the underworld. All three of the Esper creature lands are excellent. Sideboard has Renowned Rough Rider. If your opponent takes it all their creature removal, Renowned Rough Rider is also a crazy thing to blink. Also got Vetoes, which benefit from your permanents on board. Twilight Ambush as normal stuff. Golden Bloom of the Silenced. I figured sideboards are pretty flexible here. This looks like a lot of fun. This is actually the deck I'm most excited to run in League. Um, it looks like ton of I ran a very similar deck to this back with Death by Jellyfish, and I think this is actually a contender in Eternal, which really warms my heart that Boro actually might have a home. Okay, but we have to talk about combos. That was control. Let's move on to combo, starting with let's start with aristocrats. So, um, nerfs have hit the aristocrats deck pretty hard. We no longer have extraction ritual, and we no longer and there's also been a hit to serve again. And Slang Sludge got hit last month, but I still think that this is basically Lee's aristocrats deck from last standard GP, except we get to play disposable Mook, which is just a little bit better than Newborn Oni because it can also draw a card later in the game. That's nice. Um, we also get to play, where is it? Elder of Offerings. So you get just a cheap sack outlet that's not Envoy of the Fallen. Makes assembling sack outlet plus Smiling Sludge much more reliable. We also get Raise Rampage. Boy, this card's pretty silly. Any of our 2-mana creatures, this can just get back for 1 mana. It's card advantage and tempo advantage whenever we can use it. I'm also playing Exorcist of Error's main deck in this version because I'm scared of things that Exorcist hits, and it's good with Raise Rampage. Apart from that, it's the hits you know and love. Omen Skulker, Smiling Sludge, Sundering Fleet, Deadly Dispute, Godslaughter Titan, even Kage's Mercenary. Kage's Mercenary, I think it's seriously worth considering. Envoy of the Fallen, of course. I have Serve Again in the main deck, which Lee didn't have. I think it's pretty good in this kind of deck. Although you could always just like not play Serve Again and play more aristocrat stuff just to be a little faster. Mono base, we basically have the perfect mono base in standard already. Dastari Blightwing is an interesting sideboard option for aggro, blocks a creature, and then puts a -1 counter on another creature. Golden Bloom shuts off hate pieces or shuts off combos. Absentia similarly can take out hate pieces or combos. Yeah. By the way, you might notice where's Amethrin Hoarder? And I think in the base black-red version, I'm not even sure you want Amethrin Hoarder. You just have no way of discarding it, is the problem. You can ramp into it a little more effectively, I guess, with all the treasures you're making. But like there's just actually no discard outlets in this entire deck. You could play some. You could easily play like whatever it's called. The 2-1 one that makes both players discard a card from Oldun. But like you're not really removing cards from your graveyard except with Raise Rampage. That thing's not going to trigger that often. I guess Serve Again exiles cards from your graveyard now. This is the old version, but currently Serve Again exiles cards from your graveyard. Miners, that's what it's called. You could play Arduous Miners and have more of like a cards leaving your graveyard team. But one thing I do like about this version of the deck is like this honestly can play through graveyard hate pretty effectively. It mostly needs sacrifice hate to stop it. Yeah, aristocrats even after nerfs, less of like an explosive all-in 14 land combo deck, but still very much a contender, very much a threat. And the last deck I want to talk about in depth today is Persist. Hey, you know how they nerfed the heck out of Persist last time and hit like 3 cards out of it? Well, it's still good. Journey Begins is a really, really good cantrip for a deck like this. Unveils a Menagerie. Pretty good card for finding your combo pieces. The combo is you need Rejuvenating Drone, which puts +1/+1 counters on creatures that enter from graveyards, such as any persist creature. There's a Reawakened Recruit as the better one, and Ashen Wing Avenger as the worse one. Then there's also Seductive Gorgon. So Seductive Gorgon, if you have those two things, will kill your opponent immediately. Or you can use. Oh, I don't have it. Do I not have it here? I don't have it here, but you could also play Elder of Offerings, and that just mills your whole deck, which presumably finds you a Seductive Gorgon, which you can then get back somehow, or you just leave it on top of your deck. Mystery Egg is another tutor that can find your things. So is Cabinet Recruiter. As long as you got two colors, you can get your Rejuvenating Drone or Reawakened Recruit, and 3 colors gets you Seductive Gorgon. Stoic Sentinel is more ramp, along with Husk Forger, which really accelerates this deck. Got Exorcist in here as Disruption. Raise Rampage in the sideboard if they're killing your creatures. Soul Guide Lantern. Ghost Warden's Claim deals with a bunch of different types of permanents. This is another really fast combo deck that can also, play a completely, not a great mid-range game that's very much a backup plan, but it can happen, especially against opponents that aren't really playing creatures. It's Sultai now instead of Abzan, which, I do miss some of the white cards you got out of the sideboard, Event Horizon and Revolutionary class. Uh, this is built by Stasis, by the way. I don't have Stasis' name in the title, but this is a Stasis build all the way. And this deck is still pretty good, even after all the nerfs. And that's 10 decks that I'm considering, or not that I'm considering, I'm not playing in this tournament, but that you should consider for Revolution Eternal. I hope you have fun. I hope you play a lot of Eternal. Looking forward to the next set. Expect a set review from that if I can find the time. And unlock my promos. Please unlock my promos. I worked so hard on some of them. And other people also worked very hard on their promos. And there's 115 of them, so you got to get started. Unless you have a lot of sets to review, in which case I understand. If you have other obligations like work or school, I don't understand. Revolution's more important. But if you want to review sets and go through all the cards in Onagaiko and Valir and talk about which ones are better and give constructive feedback to set designers, that's more important. I understand. So best of luck to everyone, especially the curators, and good night.